Hello, this is Tony Blazer back with another recap of last night's action. Last night was round 8 in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. It was the second of the Triple Crown races for the year. Overall, it was a very exciting event, although maybe not in the ways you might want. My major thoughts obviously were concern after the races because of the crash of Cooper Webb. Last night was a tough night for some of our top guys. You had Adam Cianciarillo went out in practice, broke his collarbone, I believe. And then in the second of the 450 mains, you had Cooper Webb basically do the exact same thing. That Dragon's back, which I was, in the track preview, I was very concerned about, although I thought it might give the 250 guys a little more trouble than it did. It actually caught out two of the top guys, both Adam and Cooper. Kind of looks like they dropped the front end going into that, over that last little bit of the Dragon's back, and then rode a nose wheelie right into the triple. It could have been so much worse. I mean, if he had gone up the face of the triple and then cartwheeled 60 feet or something insane, really could have been bad. And then, Cooper Webb, really, he landed right on his back on concrete. So the fact that he came out of it with just like a hematoma and I think he bruised his pelvis and his sacrum, I think he said, didn't apparently break anything, thank God. I was really worried. I really was kind of checked out in that last main event after watching Cooper crash. I was so worried about, if he was okay. You saw what happened last week with Brian Moreau, and the last thing you wanted was some other guy to get hurt. And thankfully, Cooper was moving. He immediately got up and kind of crawled off to the side of the track, but when you saw him getting help to the mule, not bearing any weight, I was like, oh boy, this is not great. So thank you for Cooper being okay. Hopefully he'll be back next week. If not, stay out until you're fully healed. So it's definitely a tough deal there. Overall, I thought the track was cool. I enjoyed watching it. I love that hip jump. I thought the dirt, it's funny that, Dallas used to have such terrible dirt. It used to be like super hard pack. I went there and maybe 10 or 11, 12, somewhere in there, or, a few years back. And I remember looking at the track and just thinking, this is like such blue groove stuff. It's kind of like the stuff I grew up riding on a little bit. And this track now, it seems like whatever dirt they replace it with seems to have a lot more moisture. And it looks more like almost kind of like something you would have seen in Atlanta or something. I'm sure it's not clay. I haven't been to the race since they changed it, but it sure looks like it's a lot richer dirt. It seems to offer better traction. So I thought the track design was cool. Like I said, I thought it was interesting to watch. It seemed like some of the turns and stuff, the way it flowed, you could make a nice pass after the finish line, and then it kind of set you up. If you're on the inside, you're on the outside the next turn, so it wasn't necessarily easy to execute. I know some of the riders were complaining about that turn, but I thought it was good for racing. You saw a lot of passes there. Clearly RJ used it to good effect, put a little extra mustard on that pass on Sexton in the first 250 moto. Apparently, they had some beef going back to the Nationals last year, which is interesting because I think they're on the same team. But in any case, I think maybe he put a little extra elbow into that one and put him down, which I was bummed out for. Sexton himself, I thought was very impressive. I mean, I wasn't real impressed with him last year. I thought he kind of lucked into that title. Obviously he got it and great, but Austin Faulkner was by far the class of the field last year, and Sexton came out with the title, but he seems really legit this year. I mean, Chucks, I think he's sharing the red plate now with McElrath, who had, showed a lot of speed last night, but just didn't get the starts in the first two motos. He came roaring through the pack after bad starts, but it wasn't enough to get up front. And then that third one, he just got a good start finally and showed he had the speed. So I'm looking forward to a good battle between these two. Hampshire had that first moto win, bang, whatever you want to call it, and that was pretty impressive. I mean, I don't think he's won any of these races until now, so it was good for him, but he wasn't able to back it up. Maybe it's a matter of still getting used to the Husqvarna. I don't know. Hard to say, but in any case, I think he had some payback coming back himself after that race. He saw a lot of people getting a little bit aggressive out there, and I like that kind of thing. It reminds me of the old days with Bradshaw and Chicken and them. I don't have a problem as long as people aren't getting hurt. A little bit of Robbins racing always makes the race entertaining to me, at least. I had no problem with it. As I said, I like the track better. I thought it was more entertaining to watch than last week, and it seemed to lend itself to pretty good racing. You saw some guys get bad starts and come through the pack. Of course, it's a short race. Those individual motos are like, I think, 12 minutes, so it's not like the full length of the race to come through the pack. So if you get a bad start, it definitely is much harder in these sprints to make up time. So Overall, I think the fastest guys were the ones at the front most of the time. I love the shift gear that Sexton was running. I love that the kind of a, I don't know, goldenrod mustard color. It's just a really interesting color combo, retro. It's interesting that they ran it 2 weeks in a race, two weeks in a row. You don't usually see that. You usually see them mix things up, but both he and Jeremy Martin were running it again, and I thought it was really good looking stuff. I think it's going to be a great series so far. Like I said, McElrath looks great, looks legit, and Sexton is way better than I thought he'd be. Honest to God, I thought it would be one of these situations where, maybe he would be towards the front. He's always been towards the front, but he was never really that much of a threat for the win most weeks. You hear a lot of hype about him, but at least for me, I hadn't seen him on the track that often, and he seems like he's really, picked it up. Jeremy Martin had another solid race. I don't think he showed anywhere near the speed he had last week. He was fast in the whoops. It's pretty amazing when you see how well he's doing the whoops with those short little legs, and you see how his brother struggles in the whoops a lot of times. So kudos to him. He really has picked up his pace in Supercross. It's funny to think that he was not even making main events when he first started at this thing. So Jeremy has had a really good comeback. I certainly wasn't expecting him to be a title for the threat for the title after missing a year and a half with a back injury. So for him to come out here and be competitive, be at least like the third place guy pretty consistently is pretty impressive. The pro circuit guys had a very entertaining night. I wouldn't say it's a good night. A lot of crashes, a lot of getting blasted off the track and falling and what have you. Mitch had to not be too excited about that, but still early in the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys gets a race win if they can pull it together and keep from crashing. As I said, probably the scariest part of the night was the Cooper Webb thing. But aside from that, the 450 class was a good race. I mean, you had Kenny looked good in the first race. I thought, okay, he's going to do it like he did a couple weeks ago. He's going to be the Triple Crown king and come out and smoke him and kind of keep this title fight close. But apparently, from listening to him on the podium after the race, he was still a little bit off. He just didn't feel great all night. You couldn't see it in that first race, but in the second, he got a bad start and wasn't able really to come through the pack very much at all. I think him and Cooper they're about like 10th or 11th at the start, and Cooper was up to maybe 3rd or 4th when he crashed, and he was just motoring through the pack going towards the front, and Kenny was still stuck back in 9th or something at that point. So I'm at home, I'm not watching it on live, so I couldn't really see what was going on, but just watching the running order, it seemed like he was having a harder time coming through the pack than Cooper was. So clearly, if he had the start, he was able to run up front, but if he got a bad start, he didn't have the speed to kind of knife through these guys. And in the third race, he was closer to the front, got a much better start, had a much more competitive outing, but he just didn't have it for the overall, which leaves us to Eli Tomac, who had won his second race in a row, I think his fourth race going into the season. This is shaping up like it might be the Tomac's year finally to take this thing. I love Kenny, but if I thought who was going to be the real title fight for him coming down to the line, I thought it was going to be Cooper Webb. I thought maybe him and Cooper come down to the end. I'm still waiting for that Kenny rocks and fade. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope he's got all that crap behind him and he's going to take this all the way to Salt Lake City. But it's one of these things where you got to see it to believe it, and he's had a hard time the last couple of years. So I hope that Kenny stays up front, but realistically, I thought Cooper was his biggest threat, and now he's out at least one race. So he's got a big lead on Cooper, and who's to say? I mean, if Cooper had a really bad hematoma, he might race next week. He might not. If he does, he's going to be in a lot of pain, so I wouldn't expect him to be at the front. Maybe he'd be lucky enough to get a top 5 out of it or something. I'm sure you can get a shot and everything else, but it's still tough. Supercross is not an easy sport, and I think it's really shaping up like this might be Eli's year. Good for him. He's a 3-time outdoor champion. The guy's got 30 Supercross wins. Think about that. That's more than I think Rick Johnson held the record at 29 for quite a while. Bob Hanna's maybe 27, and that was the high bar for a long time until I think Jeremy McGrath finally beat RJ, and he's actually beaten many multi-time champions and wins and still doesn't have that title. So it'd be kind of a bummer for Eli if he went down as one of the the winningest racers in history not to have a title. Well, he's probably got that already, but to think that would be his legacy in Supercross. So his window, he's not going to be the guy, but only for so long. So you got to figure, he needs to strike while the iron's hot, and this seems like his really great opportunity. I hate to see the attrition thing going on. It's kind of a tough deal. Supercross is a tough sport. It's a brutal sport. I mean, it's, just walking a Supercross track scares the living crap out of me. And the thought about going fast on one is really terrifying. And it's amazing that these guys don't crash more than they do. It's funny, after I watched Cooper have that crash, and then right after that, they had Jeremy McGrath come on with that excellent Kawasaki segment, by the way. By far the best segment they do, I think. They've stepped up. If you're going to watch a bunch of garbage between the motos, the races, whatever, at least there's some good stuff there. And I think that the Jeremy McGrath segment is really good. It's very interesting. But anyway, to get off topic, seeing McGrath there made me think about how amazing it is in his career, how few times he crashed, how few times he was injured. I think the only time he really even missed any time was when he he didn't miss the series. He broke his wrist when his triple cramp snapped on his Yamaha, and he actually ended up missing some out in the outdoor season. But ironically, he finished the Supercross season with a broken wrist and actually won the title. But it's amazing. You think about how many times, like, you take so many chances, and he was at the front so much, and then not to crash, not to have this big get off, not to hurt himself. It's just amazing. I mean, as much as you sit there and say that Jeremy was talented, not crashing is a talent. It's a huge talent. And you see a guy like that, or a Dungey, that's able to keep it, on two wheels and stay competitive. There's a saying that the best ability is availability, and you can't win a title if you're not there. So, damn impressive when you think about guys like him and like Dungey, or somebody that's able to keep it and not crash. Along the same lines, let's all have a sad trombone for JGR. Man, I have never seen anything as snake bit as they are, and I sure as hell hope they stick around, because if I was Coy or J-Bone or something, I'd be ready to pack it in by now. It's like, seems every time they get something going. They had a lot of press last week with Brock Tickle. Brock rode 1,000% better than I expected him to. Really great. Looked like he hadn't missed a beat. And he comes out and then crashes and apparently breaks his hand. So, I mean, no faster do they get like a third replacement guy on the Suzuki. He crashes and he's out. I mean, holy crap. What more could you ask for? I mean, it really is like they're Wile E. Coyote over there. They're waiting for the anvil to land on the truck. It's a bad deal. I feel terrible for them, but, I'm feeling for you. Pulling for you, JGR. It's such a tough deal. If you have 1 second, actually make sure you check out Weege's pre-race thing. He actually had a little interview with Larry Ward. Larry Ward showed up. It was pretty surprising. I hadn't seen Big Bird in a long time, so that was pretty cool. But he was in the JGR truck this weekend, and maybe they should suit him up for next week. Larry Ward, he'd come back and ride for JGR, although he's liable to hurt himself if he does. But in any case, I think it was a good race. It was exciting, certainly entertaining. Like I said, the track was good. The racing was good. Super bummed for all the injuries. Hate that Adam's out. Hate that Brock and Cooper's probably out. Who knows? Hard to say. I am so happy he's only had some minor stuff go on. So hopefully he'll be back for next week. Atlanta's next week, one of my favorite races. I'm not getting to go this year. I need to make a trip back. It's always one of my favorite races to go to. I love the dirt there. The action's always pretty good, and hopefully it'll be another exciting race. So this has been my look back at Arlington. If you like this sort of thing, make sure you check out the other videos I've done on the channel. I'm actually working on a history of the Kawasaki KDX right now. Hopefully have that done this week. I'm going to cover it from its inception in 1980 until its retirement in 2006. I've also done other ones, similar stuff on the XR and CR80 and what have you. If you could like this, share it on social media, I'd very much appreciate it. And until we meet again, this is Tony Blazer. Peace.